Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, everyone. Well, first of all, let's talk about Aristotle. We want to talk about teachers. Let's go way back. What did Aristotle say about our teachers? He said, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. I say our teachers, they do educate the mind, but they also try to stimulate the heart and the soul. And that is why we love our teachers, because of what they do from the first day they walk in the door as a young, fresh, idealistic individual who wants to change the world to our children, all the way up those who've been here sometimes as long as 20, 30 plus years. And my God, we thank them every single day. So if there's any teachers in this room, I want everybody to give a round of applause for the teachers, the men and women who are educating the minds and the hearts. You know, great teachers help people become better citizens, become activists, change agents, leaders of our communities, society, government. And that's part of what we're talking about here today. And I know that we have some of the very best, and the leaders of the teachers' organizations are second to none in our nation. And I could not be prouder to have my partners in this process of changing the hearts and minds of our children than people who have joined us here today. And I'm going to start with Michael Mulgrew, President of the United Federation of Teachers. Thank you, Michael. You have been an incredible champion for many, many years and made a profound difference on the trajectory of education, what happens in our classrooms, helping our teachers and children get through a global pandemic, and that'll always be part of your legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Mulgrew once again. Melinda Person is here, and I'm so grateful to have her as a partner. She's maybe new in this position, but not new to this role. She has been working tirelessly for many, many years, championing the causes of our teachers and our children, because they go together, by the way. When you're fighting for our teachers, you're fighting for our children, because they are the beneficiaries of the teachers who are in those classrooms. So Melinda, thank you. Thank you for fighting hard for some of the legislation that we are signing already today, showing the impact that you've had in your short tenure as well. I'm going to give a special shout out to Roberta Reardon here as well. Stand up, Roberta. She is our Commissioner of Labor. She has done an amazing job, and I want to thank her for being such a strong friend and partner through all of this. And we have some of our elected leaders here today as well, our champions, Jessica Ramos, State Senator Brian Kavanaugh. Is Brian here as well? There you are. Thank you. Thank you very much for championing this bill. John Lewis, our senator as well. Senator Lew. Nader Sayed, our state assembly member. Nader's here as well. Let's thank all of them as well. And what we're talking about today is how we rebuild the teacher workforce. Now, flashback to when I was a child. Everybody wanted to be a teacher if you were a young woman, teacher or nurse, right? Those are the only options. Anything else, like, what, you want to do that? No, those are your options. They're great options. They're great options, wonderful professions. And there are a lot of jobs there as well. People wanted those jobs. There was a sense of purpose and nobility to go into both of those professions. But a lot has happened all along the way. Our teachers morphed from being an educator to a social worker, to being a parent, to being a mental health professional, nutritionist, caregiver, everything. So they've been asked to do so much more just in my lifetime. And we have seen a number of people leave the profession. It gets hard, especially after that pandemic. When my own family members, I have so many teachers, believe me, I hear all about what the teachers want at Thanksgiving dinner in my household. You know, sisters-in-law, nieces, and many, many family members. So I know what they go through, the struggles and the passion they have. I literally was with my niece Jennifer a couple days ago, and she teaches a 4-year-old Head Start program in a very poor district. And she was just bursting with pride. She says, Aunt Kathy, I have kids with autism. I have kids who don't speak English. I have kids who have all these problems. They don't have parents. And I'm there to take care of them. And And I thought, that's what we need. We need people to have that energy and that strength. But a lot of people, it's been tough on the journey. They want to capture that essence of why they're here, what they do. But life gets hard. They have their own families to take care of. And again, teachers, like I saw, at one end of the table trying to teach a classroom. At the other end of the table, in the kitchen, their own children trying to learn too. It was very hard. So I'm not surprised that there's been a loss. People gave their heart and soul, and they gave so much. But now we have to take steps to rebuild our teacher workforce, because not having enough teachers is not an option. That doesn't work for us. And also in the process, we have to do more to increase diversity in the ranks of our teachers. Full stop. We have to do more. And how we're going to do that? Today I'm signing legislation that'll help increase the number of underrepresented teachers in our classrooms and helping our kids, and award funding to districts to help them accomplish this goal. Because we know teachers make it all happen, and they shape our future. They mold their characters of our children. They spark their curiosity. They do so much. And the two organizations represented here today care about this and have been champions of the legislation they're about to sign. UFT and NYSET want this to happen. And so what we're going to do, give out a game plan. So this is how you do it. This is how we can recruit. This is how we can get people out there talking about this. And I really believe that we can make a difference. But it starts with an intentional decision to change. That's what we're doing here today. And how we increase that diversity, we'll talk about. But also it starts with making sure that we have enough resources in the first place. I've been governor 2 years. Seems longer, doesn't it? It's been a great 2 years, it truly has. It's something when I had Mr. James, my 8th grade social studies teacher, talk to me about government, what government was all about, learning about the branches of government, learning about Washington, took a field trip to Washington, D.C. in 1968. Washington was burning at the time. I saw the flames, the riots after the assassination of Dr. King. I mean, I was a little kid learning about all this with my family and some classmates. Mr. James probably didn't see that I'd be a governor someday. But we lost him a couple years ago. I was at his wake, and I spoke to his wife about the fact that I am here today because of Mr. James. Sparked in me the knowledge that government can be a force of good for people. And I learned all about that. And at that young age, I decided I want to take my place. Someday maybe I'll get to Washington. Maybe someday, at the end of it all, I can be a staffer for a senator. True story. That was as high as I was going. And I achieved that at age 27 as an attorney for Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan, so I'm all good. But life is interesting, isn't it? But I always think about Mr. James, that teacher who taught me the power and the importance of government. And other people are learning about the power and importance of science and technology and math and learning to care for people, the healing arts. But I needed to make sure that as governor now, for 2 years, that we invest and make up for disinvestment. Since I've been governor, education funding has gone up 17%. 17%. This past year, $34.5 billion. And I said I would also fully fund foundation aid for the first time ever, because we talked and talked and talked and nothing happened. But it's not just about that money. It's not just about making sure we have good buildings. It's also about talking about that teacher shortage. And so my recruitment plan is so important to me personally, because I want people to have that chance to fulfill their dreams like I did. Someone who wants to be a teacher, like my niece Jennifer, was 4 years old when she said, "Aunt Kathy, I want to be a teacher." And now she's teaching 4-year-olds. That to me was a great, great reminder that dreams can come true, and we're here to make that happen. And we think about our obligation to make our workforce diverse, we're failing terribly. You have to call out a problem before you can solve it, right? This is a problem. A 2022 report from the Education Trust said that 1 in 5 New York students attend a school without any teachers of color. Roughly 1 in 10 Black and Latino kids attend schools without teachers of the same race. And disparity grows for Asian students, 19%, and a staggering 76% of Native American students attend schools without teachers of their own racial or cultural backgrounds. It's just not numbers, it just, if we're gonna inspire kids, it really helps for them to see someone who looks like them who made it as well. Because to these children, the teachers are success. They made it. They're in their authority position, right? Not just their parents, but there's someone else for the first time. They see someone else in authority. And when they see someone who looks like them, they can relate to, the chance of them being inspired to do more, not just become a teacher themselves, but to be something important, something of consequence. This is a call to action to reshape our workforce in a way that children can see themselves reflected in these important positions of authority. So we have to focus on this. And I'll also say that research from Johns Hopkins showed that black students who had one black teacher by third grade were 13% more likely to enroll in college. Because guess what? They saw an important individual who looked like them, who had to go to college themselves to be there. And that was the inspiration. If a black child has 2 teachers by the time they're in third grade who look like them, they're 32% more likely to go to college. I mean, that's astounding. That's astounding to me. How do you argue with that? So it's not just a policy decision we're making here today. It's a moral obligation to ensure that these children have a shot. And it's really not just matching a student to someone of the same race or same background. It's allowing all the children to be exposed to this, right? This is how we inspire tolerance. Because what we're seeing here today is a very intolerant society in ways that I didn't experience growing up. I wasn't aware. People weren't talking about it as much. Yes, there was systemic racism. It's always been there. But now what is percolating up, and truly in the last 5, 7, 8 years, is something we have to push back down. We have to take hold of this. And one way we can foster that tolerance for adults is to start when they're children. Let them see teachers and other people of influence who come from a different background. Just imagine the tolerance that that'll build. We'll be a radically different society if we offer that to our students. Think about it. That's what I'm excited about. So I'm signing legislation that will help school districts develop programs that attract underrepresented candidates into teaching, will help fund it, and that builds on programs like our Empire State Teacher Residency Program. We put $30 million to help pay for master's degrees and certification program as well to help our teachers because they're not making a lot of money, right? Okay, you know what I'm talking about. Gosh. That's what passion's all about. Passion. You're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for the end result. And it's to leave this place better than you found it. That's what Mom told me. Mom and Dad both taught me that. And that's why when I was growing up, on my refrigerator, the sign said, other than study harder, go into the world and do well. But most importantly, go into the world and do good. That's what teachers do every single day. They do good every single day, and we need to be helping them with their cost of that education so it's not a crushing burden on them or a deterrent for people who otherwise might want to go into this. So the other issue we want to talk about today is safety in the workplace. We talk about that all the time, but who talks about safety in a classroom? You're a teacher. Depending on your school district and maybe the age of your students, who knows? Workplace violence is now the leading cause of deaths on the job in this country. Sad statement of fact. But also, the classroom is a workplace. The school is a workplace. And that has been ignored when we're talking about laws that protect the individuals in those buildings, particularly our teachers. and our students, and administrators, but the teachers are exposed to this. So we are going to develop a state law, which our law now requires employers to have workplace violence prevention programs. Every workplace except classrooms and schools, right? Linda and I talked about this. Why is it that every other workplace matters, that there's a requirement that there be a plan in place, except in schools and in classrooms? So the law does not include public schools, but after today, it sure will. We are signing legislation that add public schools to this law, so our educators feel safe at work. So I'm excited. There's always this fresh feeling at the beginning of a school year, right? I always get a little nervous. Is my paper done? Am I going to get in trouble? But for teachers, it is a fresh start. It's a fresh start. And I just want to applaud all of you who've chosen this profession and your leaders, because I cannot imagine where we'd be without you. I cannot imagine. So our gratitude must be demonstrated, not just in words and nice events around the beginning of the school year. And I went to a school in Terrytown yesterday, and I had the best time playing a little catch with the kids out in the field and having lunch. It was great. Just reminds you of like the innocence you see, the possibilities. I asked a group of girls how many girl governors they thought we had. They had to think about it. I said, one. I said, and who's next? Who's here is going to be next? And they all got excited. So that's what we're here for. We're here to make a difference. And one person who has already made a difference, one of our greatest champions of education, our leader, Mike Mulgrew. Come on up here, Mike, and say a few words. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Everybody happy about the beginning of school? And this is a good way to start the beginning of a school year, isn't it? First, I cannot thank the governor enough. I've said this many times over the last 2 years. I said we already have the best educational governor we've ever had, because actions are what count. We've heard a lot of words. We hear lots of words from elected officials all the time. But in the end, it's the actions that count. And when it comes to that, you have a score higher than everybody else. So thank you for all that you've done. So, and all the elected officials, the bill sponsors, everyone, it's been, as always, it's the government process, but we have now finally gotten to the place where we wanted to get for a couple of years. Our unions, myself and our state union, we've worked with years with different advocacy groups on how to recruit and retain teachers. We have a crisis. You hear about it nationally. For years, everybody said, well, New York City would never deal with it. Well, we are. We are. It was, oh, people will come from all over the country to live in New York City and teach. Well, that's no longer true. And this is a big problem. But at the same time, we work with advocacy groups to try to recruit teachers who match our students. We understand that you can never, ever actually help a student until you first engage with a student. You have to figure out that common ground. And we know, because all of the data shows us, we want people from all of the cultures inside of our city. We want teachers from every culture inside of our city. And that will make a great difference for the children. And that's where we want to go with this. So we've been doing this for years, and now our state is saying, we want to help. We want to push our school districts to actually come up with real plans to make this work. And if they come up with a plan that works, we're going to give them more funding. That's how government works to make things better. And that's what this bill is about today. Tomorrow is the first day of school here in New York City. I know I'll get asked a whole bunch of questions about the asylum seekers and all the other things. But in the end, it's first and foremost, everything that matters happens inside of a classroom and a school building. So it's our job to help that have the best chance of success. It's not talking about policies and all the rest of it. It's saying, here's a policy, but we want to make it work. So for the teachers for tomorrow, just imagine this. This year in New York City, there will be over 200 now a new all-time high, over 200 different languages spoken. That's 200 cultures and children with different identities. And most people look at that and go, oh, we look at it as this makes us stronger. We just need to make sure we're there to help all of those children. Because that diversity to us is nothing but strength. It's nothing but strength. And I can tell all of the parents out there, if a child shows up at our school, we're taking care of them. Because once they're in our school building, they're our kids. And that's what is the beauty of our teaching. So I'm asking all of anyone out there in New York City, anyone out there in New York State, anyone out there who just seems to come across this, come to New York. Come to New York, and we're going to help you out. We want, if you have that heart, if you have that DNA where you know your life is really the value in your life comes from helping children so that they can have a better life, we want you here. It's not going to be easy. It'll be tough, but we're here to help and support you. And that's what this bill is saying about the state of New York. And the rest of the country, sadly, that is not what happens in a lot of states when it comes to teachers. It is not that. But we are here in New York, and that's a blessing for all of us. And to the workplace, violence prevention. I can't thank Melinda enough for really being the heavy champion on this by saying over and over again, this is ridiculous. The school is a workplace. We all understand when we hear about school violence, you all put the same picture in your head. The horrible shootings. And then a school goes on all these trainings about how to do lockdowns and everything else. But it is important that a school is always prepared for everything. Nobody wants anything bad happening inside of a school. And the best way to stop that is to actually have a very broad program with a real plan that deals with all of the issues, because schools, no matter what, this thing will never change. The school is always the center of every community. So it's important that we are now getting that straightened out at the state. And again, I thank Melinda and the governor and both of the houses of the legislature up in the Senate, up in Albany. This is important. But again, this is what I really want to end with. You want to come to the great state of New York? You want to be treated with respect? You want to be where we're going to say, come on in, we want you here, we want you to teach. As long as you're here and you care about children, we're going to help you, because that's what New York stands for, and that's what we're here today. So thank you all very much for that, for doing this today. And thank you, Governor Hochul, again, for being the champion. And now this is the first time I'm introducing you. No, I did once in the summer. We were so happy when Melinda Pearson said, I will accept the job when it was offered to her through the NYSET Executive Board and through our election process. We were blessed to have Melinda Pearson as the NYSET president. She is someone who understands what teachers actually deal with every day. She is someone who brings the perspective of everything we do has to be done around what goes on in the school building and what goes on in the classroom each and every day. And that is our state president, Melinda Pearson. Please come on up.
So this is a privilege to be able to be here as both of these bills are signed today. And I'm going to talk about the bills, but every time I see the governor in person, I want to make sure that I personally thank you for all that you've done to fund Foundation Aid. This was a 30-year fight that so many of us were involved with along the way, and for once, we had a governor who came through and fulfilled that promise to fund our schools. And so I want to start with that, because that is going to make a difference alone, just that funding. Thank you. These two bills that the governor is signing today are important steps to improve the profession and to improve our public schools here in the state of New York, to make them the strongest and the best that they can be. They show that New York State values its public schools and our educators as the foundations and the center of our communities. We are particularly excited about inclusion in the New York's 2006 Workplace Violence Prevention Act, which was passed in 2006. Just like other employers, we deserve the protections that all workers deserve in the workplace. Our members have been advocating for this legislation for over a decade, and the governor was finally able to deliver this bill. It has increased in importance as we've seen an increase in disruptive incidents in our schools since the pandemic. These have been across the state in rural, urban, and suburban schools. And we proudly celebrate that school populations are welcoming more and more students with unique emotional and behavioral needs. But to be successful, our staff need training, and we need fully staffed schools. This legislation is about prevention. It will ensure that there are plans in place to prevent potential harm to teachers and students alike. There will be challenging scenarios, and it will give parents, educators, and kids confidence that our kids are safe and that our learning environments are supportive environments, setting them up for success. It also tells our educators and school staff that they matter, that we care about them and their working environment. That message is being sent today. It is estimated that New York will need more than 180,000 new teachers in the next decade, and we've already seen the impact of the educator shortage. It is not looming. That shortage is here now. Part of the solution to the teacher shortage in New York is promoting the heroism that our educators display every day, telling the stories like the governor just did about her teacher, Mr. James. But it's also the practical work of making sure careers in education are attractive and sustainable careers. This means securing welcoming, safe environments for our educators. It means breaking down barriers to entry into the profession and retaining a diverse educator workforce. And it means providing the resources, support, and benefits they need to survive in their careers for a lifetime. Today, we are taking important steps toward those goals, and we are so proud to have our governor fighting with us on behalf of New York State's public schools. Thank you, Governor. It is now my privilege to introduce our next speaker, Greg Hinkson, a high school math teacher for the last 21 years.
Good morning. Distinguished guests, Governor Cathy, UFT President Michael, Melinda, and every other person. I promised, so my name is Greg Hinkson. I promised Mike that I'm going to do exactly what he did. But unfortunately, I'm not so well versed in public speaking as Mike is, so I'm going to revert to my notes. So my name is Greg Hinkson, and I'm happy to echo sentiments on systems and legislations which promise to affect sustainable changes in public education. My perspective as a practitioner is expected to be slightly different. I have spent the last 2 decades in the classroom teaching mathematics, doing which I have met great educators, some of whom I've mentored, vetted best practices in education with, and even indulged in some PD. If you know, you know. Sadly, however, the attrition rate for a subgroup of educators, millennials in particular, is rather too high. Too often when I look around in my school building during my lunch breaks or during my prep time, to just chat with educators, I can't find people whom I've developed meaningful relationships with over the past years because they have either left the profession or moved to a different state altogether. The New York City has invested in their time, energy, resources, and these resources are being impeded by factors that are driving away these young, great minds that, I yearn to, vet lesson plans with. I yearn to, vet best practices with. because for a myriad of reasons, they are leaving the profession. And I'm so thankful for everything that, Governor Cathy is doing to make sure that we attract, a diverse set of teachers within the classrooms, but we also have to consider how to implement systems that are going to retain those teachers. Because so many times I've witnessed principals and school building leaders, they pour their life and their expert knowledge into these young teachers, and somebody else is reaping the benefits. Some other state, some other school district, and we need those people because it's, in my opinion, it's slightly mismanagement of resources. So with all the things that we're doing, I'm hoping that, we can put into practice and put some systems in place to retain these teachers. All right, how am I doing? I'm trying. The second issue that I want to talk about, and it's the last, is this idea of best practices in pedagogy. And so many times as a practitioner in the classroom, it's like, things are thrusted upon us, this idea of best practices, and to say the least, best practices is subjective because what may work in the state of California may not work in Brooklyn or in Far Rockaway. So as I commend the governor for, soliciting, school districts nationwide, to ensure that, we are providing the best quality education for our students by seeing what they're doing. But at the same token, we also need to provide systems where teachers, in local school districts like myself, can be a part of the vetting of the best practices so that there could be a greater buy-in and it's not just a compliance issue. And that is my 2 points. Thank you so much.
That concludes our program. Please remain in your seats for the bill signing.